Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel Best IT Solutions, and today in this video tutorial I am going to discuss serialization and deserialization related questions and answers which are mostly asking in the interview regarding serialization and deserializations. Okay, so let's start. So our first question is, what is serialization and deserialization? So serialization is the process of converting an object state to a sequence of bytes. So this serialization is the process of converting an object states into sequence of bytes. Okay, and deserialization is the process of rebuilding those bytes of streams into a live object again at some future time. So simply in serialization we are converting the objects into a stream of bytes, and in deserialization process we are from that stream of bytes we are converting we are getting the live object. Okay, and our next question is, why serialization is used? So persisting data, transfer of exchange of data over network, and store user session in web apps. So for this reason serialization used. So serialization used in various places, like for persisting the data and transferring the data over the network, or exchange the data over the network, and store our user session in web apps. So for this reason we are using serialization mechanism. What is marker interface? So interface that have no method declared inside it. So in interface which has no methods at all, that interface is called as marker interface. For example, serializable and clonable, random access, etc. These are the marker interfaces, and these are used just to give signal to compiler or JVM that the object of this class implementing this interface must be treated in a special way. That is java.io.serializable. So this since this interface has no methods, so these are used just to give signal to compiler or JVM that the object of this class implementing this interface must be treated in a special way. Okay. What three methods must be implemented by a serializable class? Okay, so for serializations we are using the three methods. These are the first is the private void write object, and it is from java.io.object output stream package and throws IO exception. So this is the method like write object, and another is read object, and private void read object, that is java.io.object input stream package, and it is also throw IO exceptions, class not found exceptions. Okay, so this write object throw only IO exceptions, and read object throws IO exceptions as well as class not found exception. And another method is private void read object no data. So this read object no data throws object stream exceptions. So these three methods are used for serializing the object, like write object, read object, and read object no data. Okay, and another question is like, how to implement serializations? So to implement serializations, here is a demo. Like first we need to implement our class with serializable interface. So here public class serial class implement serializable interface first, and there is a method data current time, public serial class current time equal to calculate get instead get time, and public get current time return current time. So this is this demo methods. Try file output stream equals equal to new file output stream, and we are passing the file name here, and or we can pass the path of the file or location of the file, and object output stream out equal to new object output stream, and it is taking the object of file output stream. So object output stream taking the objects of file output stream, and out.write object time out.close. So here we are writing this object, the time object. So out.write object and pass that time object here, and out.close. Here catch IO exception, example print stack data. So in this way we can implement our serialization mechanism. how not to serialize some fields in a serializable object. That is, if we don't want to some fields we don't want to serialize it, then what should we do? So there is a keyword called transient. So transient keyword is used with variable to avoid serialization. So if we want to avoid serialization for some field, then we can use transient keyword like transient private int x. Now x will not be serialized. So here if we mention the transient keyword before the declaration of the variables, then that variable will not going to be serialized. Note, to avoid a child class not to serialize, we need to override the write object and read object and need to throw not serializable exception from method. Okay, so here is a note like, to avoid child class not to serialized, we need to override the write object and read object and need to throw not serializable exception from that method. So another question is difference between serializable and externalizable. So in case of serializable, default serialization process is used, but in case of externalizable, custom serializable process is used, which is implemented by our application. So the main difference is, in case of serializable, default serialization mechanism is used, but in case of externalizable, custom serializable, that is our own serializable process is used, which is implemented by our application. And JVM gives callback to read external and write external of Java external interface for restoring and writing objects into persistent. So JVM provides callback, JVM gives callback to read external and write external methods of Java.io externalizable package interface for restoring and writing objects into the persistent state. Why volatile keyword is used? So this is also a very important question, which is mostly asked in the interview, like the why volatile keyword is used. The volatile keyword is used in Java as an indicator to Java compiler and thread that do not catch value of this variable and always read it from main memory. So to avoid the caching mechanism, like it is a indicator to Java compiler and thread that do not catch value of this variable and always read it from main memory. So if we want to share any variable in which read and write operation is atomic by implementation, then we can declare them as a volatile variable. Okay, so if we want to share any variable in which read and write operation is atomic by implementation, then we can declare them as volatile variable. So here is also a note given like static can be used with volatile variable but not in transient variable. Sorry. So static keyword can be used with the volatile variable but not in transient variable. So static keyword cannot be used with the transient variable but can be used with the volatile variable. Next question is, what is serial version UID? So this is a unique ID, like serial version UID is an ID which is stamped on object when it gets serialized, usually hash code of object. So this UID is a hash code of that object. So this is used for object when it gets serialized, usually hash code of that object. So it is used for version control of object, which specifies this version of this class as this ID. So this is used for the version control of that object, which is specified this version of this class has this ID. In case of serial version UID mismatch, compiler throws java.io invalid class exception. So if the serial version UID have not matched, in case of serial version UID mismatch, compiler throws java.io invalid exceptions, invalid class exception. What happened when you try to deserialize an object in which a new field added after serialized? Okay, so if after serializations one new field has added and we try to deserialize that object, what happened? So by adding any new field, there is a chance that the new serial version UID generated for that class version may not be the same of the already serialized object. So Java compiler throws java.io invalid class exception. So by adding a new field, there is a chance that a new serial UID is generated. So if we try to deserialize the previous object, so it is through the invalid class exception. What are the compatible changes and incompatible changes in Java serialization mechanism? So as per Java serialization mechanism, adding field or method comes under compatible change, and changing class hierarchy or run implementing serializable interface some under comes in non-compatible change, incompatible. So as per Java serialization specification, adding new field or methods comes under the compatible change. Adding new fields or methods, if we are adding new field or methods, so it is going to compatible change. And if we changing class hierarchy or run or on implementing serializable interfaces, that's comes under the non-compatible changes. So here diagram showing like generalization versus specialization. So what is generalization and what is specialization? So generalization is the process of extracting shared characteristics from two or more classes and combining them into a generalized superclass. So generalization means process of extracting shared, that is the common characteristics from two or more classes. So here this is the generalization example, that is we are extracting the data from two or more classes, that is we are extracting the common fields from two or more classes here. But the specialization means creating a new subclass from an existing class, dividing the main class in many classes. So if we are dividing the main class in many classes, that is the specialization. Specialization means creating a new subclass, creating one or more new subclasses from an existing class. If there is a existing class and if we are creating multiple classes, subclasses from that existing class, that is called a specialization. But if we are combining more than one classes and creating a and if we are extracting these common variables and we have got the another classes, and this class is called the generalization. This process is called the generalization. Okay, thank you guys. This much in this video. If you have learned something from this video, you can like, share and subscribe this channel.